He said that he followed the twin up to the house, and once the door opened, you can just smell the blood. Like, it was so strong, you can just smell the blood. So Detective Carson said that he has been in a lot of scenes where there was a lot of blood, but this scene was something like he's never seen before. He said that not only could you smell the blood, but you can taste it. That is so nasty. Can you imagine like being in a room or a home where the scent of blood is so strong that you can taste it? No. Hi you guys, and welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, hello, my name is Jazmine Tanaya, and if you are not new here, hello, welcome back, and welcome back to another episode of True Crime Tuesdays. I'm your host, Jazmine Tanaya. If you are new here or you just are unaware of what True Crime Tuesday is, it is a new segment that I started here on my channel where every Tuesday we pick a popular true crime case and we talk about it, discuss and dissect the entire case. We put our 2 cents, and yeah, we just talk about it. So if you're interested in that type of content, I would highly suggest you subscribe. And I also have some other content on my channel, some criminal justice content, as well as some lifestyle school content here and there. So on today's episode of True Crime Tuesday, we will be discussing and dissecting the popular case of Jazmine Whitehead, aka Nikki Whitehead. This case is not what you expect. Nikki was not a murderer. She was actually the one murdered, and she was murdered by the 2 closest people in her life. Let's get into it. So Jazmine Whitehead, aka Nikki, we'll be referring to her as Nikki in this video because it's just what she went by, was born on April 18th of 1975, and she died on January the 13th of 2010. So that would make her 34 years old at the time of her death. It was said by one of Nikki's closest friends that she was such an amazing person and that she did not come from structure. I guess like her upbringing wasn't the best, but she made the best of what she was born into. It was also noted that she was actually a licensed hairstylist, so she went back to school to get her license to become a hairstylist. And also she enrolled into a border college in Atlanta. She enrolled to study fashion. Nikki gave birth to her 2 identical twin daughters, Jazmine and Tanaya, but we'll be referring to them in this video as Jazz and Taz. They were born on November 27th of 1993 in Conyers, Georgia. When Nikki initially found out that she was pregnant, she told Jazz and Taz's father, but he pretty much abandoned her and picked up and moved to Canada and basically went ghost. She hadn't heard from him since he was told the news. They were raised by Nikki's grandma, so basically their great grandma, Della Frazier, due to Nikki being in their life like sporadically. Like, she would come and go, and basically she didn't have custody of them. It was said that she was trying to get her life together, so she gave custody to her grandmother so that she can get her life together. So they lived with their grandmother up until they were about 12 to 13 years old, but we'll get into that. It was said when the girls lived with their grandmother that they were honor roll students, and they were also in like Girl Scouts, so they were like perfect scholars. They were doing really well for themselves despite not having both of their parents in their life full-time. They also enrolled into this performing arts program when they reached high school as well. So like I mentioned, Nikki, she was in and out of the girls' lives. Like, she would visit them sporadically. She didn't really have much of a relationship with the girls. You know, they would see her from time to time, but all they knew was their great grandma and that home life with her. So yeah, they didn't really have a relationship with either of their biological parents. But Nikki still wanted to make her presence known in the girls' life and let them know, like, you know, I'm here, just getting myself together. So between the year of 2007 and 2008, it wasn't really specified. The girls at that time were around 13 or 14 years old when Nikki wanted to have primary full custody of them. She wanted them to come live with her and just, you know, come back into their lives and be the mother figure that she always wanted to be. So she kind of got her life together and she wanted to get her girls back. I don't blame her. So it was said that Nikki and Della, the girls' great grandmother, so Nikki's grandma, went to court to kind of like fight it out for custody, and in the end the judge ruled that Nikki was to get full custody during that time. Now the girls, they did not want to go with their mom at all, and honestly I don't really blame them, because it's like they don't know her, you know, as being mom. They just know great grandma as being mom. But on the other hand, I also feel like Nikki should have a second chance with her girls, and you know, build that relationship that any parent will want with their child. I understand for both parties. So yeah, they didn't want to go, and because of this they rebelled. When they were in Nikki's custody, there was so many altercations between the twins and Nikki. Some of the altercations even turned physical. There was a lot of counseling and juvenile court appearances for the girls. It was rough. So after all that happened, they went back to court, and the judge ruled that Della should get back custody of the girls. And I'm not gonna lie, I agree with that, because again, that's the only home life they know, and if they're causing havoc over at Nikki's house, then I feel like they should kind of ease them into it. Like, they shouldn't just throw them into a whole new environment. But yeah, that's just my input. It was said that when the girls were living with Nikki, they will often tell their great grandma Della that she was too controlling and that she was very abusive, so they didn't want to live with her, so they acted out because of her being controlling and abusive. And the girls also mentioned to their great grandmother that they felt that Nikki trying to control them or discipline them was very hypocritical, and I think that was due to her not being in their lives, you know, full time. It was like, you have these preteens or these teenagers, you're taking them from the only environment that they know, putting them into this new environment, then they have new rules. Nikki probably had more structure over there versus what the great grandmother was giving them, and they wasn't feeling it, so they were acting out and being rebellious because they didn't want to listen, or they felt as though she was never a mom, so why should we listen to her? Yeah, after everything happened, like I mentioned, the judge stated that Della should have full custody of the girls again, and the girls were ecstatic. They were ready to go back to live with their great grandmother. But Nikki, on the other hand, she was devastated because she was trying to gain or regain full custody of the girls for the past 2 years, and when she finally got it, it kind of just like slipped away. And that is sad for a mom to, you know, not have custody of your children, especially when you gave them away for a purpose. Like, you didn't just give them away because you didn't want them. You gave them away because you were trying to better your life, so that when you get them back, you know, you can give them the best life that they can have. And I feel like that's all Nikki was trying to do. She was trying to give the girls a better life than what she had. But I think by the time that she was trying to get custody of them, because they had already like grown up in that environment and they were pretty much teenagers, almost grown, it kind of was too late. If she would have did it maybe when they were like in elementary school and when it had such a negative effect, but it was like the damage was already done. And who knows what the great grandmother was like feeding them or telling them about their parents. They probably had questions like any other kid would have questions when they don't have their parents in their lives. So who knows what stories they were being told about their parents to make them look at Nikki in the type of light that they looked at her in. And if that was the case, if they were given negative stories about their parents, I don't feel like that's appropriate, because you're drawing a wedge in between family, and that should never happen. Yeah, so they went back to live with Della, and Nikki, such a fighter that she is, ended up taking it back to court to regain full custody again. So on January 5th of 2010, the girls ended up having to be removed from Della's house again and given back to Nikki because she was given full custody. Now at this time, the girls were 16 years old. So we all know what comes with most 16-year-old girls. So once again, once Nikki won the full custody of the girls protested. They did not want to go. They wanted to stay with their grandmother, you know, same as last time. It was said by the girls' grandmother, Linda, that when they found out that they had to go back with Nikki, there was so much commotion outside of the courtroom that they had to step out and figure out what was going on in that hallway. Linda recalled in an interview that she did that when she stepped out into the hallway to figure out, you know, what was all the commotion, it was said by Jazz that if she had to go back and live with Nikki, that she would kill her. I think at that time nobody really took that threat serious. You have these hormonal 16-year-old girls that's going to say anything to get their way, so nobody really acted on it. But I would have been keeping a close eye on her, because yeah, no, you don't say things like that, especially about your mom. Like, even with the type of relationship they have, like, you don't say those type of things. So after court, Nikki then left the courthouse to go to Della's house to get the girls' things so that she can take them to her home. And when she got there, she said that the girls refused to leave with her, and one of them even said that they won't even be living with her long. I mean, that's 2 for 2. That's 2 threats. I don't know if she meant like she's thinking that they're gonna go back to court to go back to court for her great grandma to get custody, or if she's saying it like earlier, like she's gonna kill her. Either way, that's 2 for 2, and something needs to be done. So even though they did not want to live with their mom, the judge ordered Nikki to have the full custody, and he also stated that this would just be a 2-week trial period. So they had to live with each other for 2 weeks, see how well it worked out, and go from there. Now, my take on it is that, given the girls' attitude, if they know that this is like a trial, they're going to do everything in their power to mess this up so that they don't have to live with their mom. They want to live with their great grandma, so they're not going to be cooperative, and they want this to go wrong so that they can pretty much prove everyone wrong. Like, this is why we don't need to be living with her, let us go back to grandma. Yeah, so I don't even think this trial period would have worked. I feel like the judge should have eased them into living there. The trial period is not really easing them. He could have did more so like giving a visitation, or giving Nikki visitation, letting her visit the girls, and maybe for like a day, you know, get to know them, take them out, do something fun. It shouldn't have been they automatically go live with her for 2 weeks. It should have been visitation, working up to a relationship at least, and then maybe the 2-week trial period could have came into place. What do y'all think? Do y'all think the 2-week trial period was a good idea, or do you think something else should have been done before permanently moving the girls back into Nikki's custody? Let me know in the comments. So during the 2-week trial period, it was no surprise that Nikki and the girls clashed. It was also noted that Nikki complained to, I don't know if it was a family member or a friend, that the girls were pretty much out of hand, and she felt threatened, and she was scared for her life, and she was scared of them. I mean, that's all you need to feel like. I'm not going to be scared of my kids. If I'm feeling like I'm scared of living in my own home, then they need to go. I'm sorry. Maybe living with grandma is best right now. Maybe we can, like I said, work on the relationship, and then we can revisit you living with me. But I get Nikki, she wanted to have her girls back so bad, but at what cost? Her life. So yeah, it's also worth mentioning that during this time, Nikki got into, or was in, a relationship with a truck driver. His name was Robert Head, and the girls and Nikki actually lived in his home. So it wasn't like Nikki's home, it was Robert's home. So they were living there during the 2-week trial period. So on January 13th of 2010, one of the girls flagged down a passing patrol car, and the officer that they flagged down, his name was Greg Carson. He was actually a lieutenant at the police department, at the Conyers Police Department. He stated that one of the twins, once he was flagged down, one of the twins said to him that she and her sister had just arrived home from school, and they found their mother dead. He said that he followed the twin up to the house, and once the door opened, you can just smell the blood. Like, it was so strong, you can just smell the blood. There was a bloody trail that showed that Nikki was drugged from her room and into the bathroom, and she was put into the bathtub. When the officer got there, he stated that Nikki was fully submerged in the bathtub. She had a nightgown on. She was just full of blood. There was also a broken vase and a blood smeared couch at the scene. So Detective Carson said that he has been in a lot of scenes where there was a lot of blood, but this scene was something like he's never seen before. He said that not only could you smell the blood, but you can taste it. That is so nasty. Can you imagine like being in a room or a home where the scent of blood is so strong that you can taste it? No. Based off of the coroner's report, Nikki had been stabbed multiple times. They said that she was stabbed over 80 times. She had multiple lacerations on her neck, her forearms, her hands, and she had stab wounds on her back and her neck. And she had a bite mark on her arm, and she also had some defense wounds. So she was trying to fight off whoever did this to her. So not only was she stabbed, but she was beaten as well. The coroner estimated that she had been killed between the hours of 8 a.m. and on January 10th. They also noted that the scene was set up to look like a robbery, but there was no signs of forced entry within the home. So from the beginning, very early on in the case, detectives already suspected that the twins had something to do with their mother's murder, but they didn't want to like jump to conclusions based off of the scene and what the girls have seen. So they took them down for questioning. They said once they were like down at the station being interviewed, the girls appeared to be or were, I don't really know if they were distraught or if it was just an act. It could have been either or, but they were they appeared to be very distraught, crying and like hugging and holding on to each other. One of the twins said to one of them that, you know, we got to be strong and we're gonna find out who did this. Girl, it's you and your sister. But before then, of course, detectives, they took samples of the blood and everything, and they also took a DNA analysis of the bite mark that Nikki had on her arm. Keep that in mind because that's going to come into play. So during questioning, the girls stated that they left their house at 8 a.m. to go to school, and they were about 10 minutes late for school. And then when they came home after school, that's when they found Nikki in the tub, dead, pretty much. I did an interview with the girls. You know, they got they asked them questions that they needed to be asked. They asked them like if they knew if anyone was in the home. It came up that the home did not belong to Nikki and the girls, that it belonged to her truck driver boyfriend Robert. Remember him from earlier? Yeah, the girls mentioned to the detectives that he wasn't home when they left, but they don't know if he was home, you know, during the time that it happened. So once detective learned about the mother's boyfriend, the truck driver Robert, they went on to name him as a suspect, went to get a hold of him to investigate him to figure out, you know, if he had anything to do with it. So as they were digging, you know, trying to get information on Mr. Robert, it came up that Miss Nikki girl, she had another lover. His name was Joe, and he actually worked in the barbershop next to Nikki's salon, because remember I told y'all she went to school for cosmetology. Yeah, she worked at a salon, and Joe worked at a barbershop next to her salon. So that's how they met. Whenever they approached Robert about this, when they went to go question him, they brought up Joe. Very messy, because why are you bringing him up? But I get it. When they found out about this, they thought that it was like some toxic, crazy love triangle. They thought that one of them killed Nikki because they found out about the other one. It wasn't even the case. But yeah, when they approached Robert to, you know, investigate him, and they told him about Nikki and her being murdered, they said that Robert was very distraught. He did let detectives know that he knew about Joe and that him and Nikki had an understanding. So that narrative kind of went out the window once Robert told them that he knew about Joe. So they were just back to trying to figure out what the motive was behind her murder. So yeah, anyways, they questioned Robert, got some information from him to figure out where he was the day of the murder and the time, and it was checked out that he was actually on the road driving his truck during the time that all of this happened. So he was cleared. So the only other possible suspects could be Joe or the twins, Jazz and Taz. So detectives went to Joe to find out, like, maybe he found out about Robert and he ended up murdering Nikki because of it. So when they approached Joe, he was grief-sickened, and he said that him and Nikki was lovers for a few months. So detectives, you know, went on to ask him, like, you know, where he was on that day, during that time. He gave them an alibi, which checked out. They were able to confirm his story through surveillance footage, and he was nowhere near the home during the time that this happened. So once her two lovers were cleared from being suspects, the detectives turned their attention back to Jazz and Taz. So detectives, they did a search of Robert's home one last time, just to see if they can come up with some more information to figure out what happened and if the twins were actually suspects in their mother's murder. So when they did the digging to find more information, they took some more blood samples from the crime scene, and it came back that the blood did belong to not only Nikki but both Jazz and Taz. The blood was also on the twins' clothing, and they also found notes in the girls' journals. The girls were like writing notes to each other, I guess, to kind of cope of having to leave their great-grandmother's house to come back and live with their mom. They discussed in those notes, you know, wanting to leave and not wanting to live there anymore. One of the girls wrote to the other one, "If we don't get rid of her now, we'll be stuck here forever." When the detectives seen that note, they pretty much stated that Nikki's murder was premeditated. Now, something in the girl's story just was not adding up to detectives. I mean, it wasn't adding up to me when I read about this case. So they basically got some surveillance footage from a service station that was near the home that the girls lived in with Nikki. And the surveillance footage showed the girls at that service station at 10:10 a.m. on the day of Nikki's murder. Now, remember, the girls said that they went to school, or they left the home for school at 8 a.m. and they were 10 minutes late. But that surveillance footage shows something totally different. So after, you know, they got the forensic back, and also the surveillance footage of the girls at that service station when they were supposed to be in school, the detectives wanted to bring them in for questioning one last time to finally get the truth, or to see if they would even tell the truth. Oh, and I also forgot to mention that the bite mark that was on Nikki's arm, the DNA sample that they took actually came back to have Taz's DNA on it. So detectives brought them back in for questioning a second time. This time they decided to split the girls up to do separate questionings. They said that when they brought those girls back in, it was totally different from the first time. Remember, the first time they were so distraught, like hugging each other, and yeah. This time they said that they were vile, they were not cooperating, they were cursing at the detectives. It was just a complete turnaround. Like, they were not those sweet, innocent little girls anymore. Like, they were vile and vicious. So after, you know, they confronted them with all that information, the journals, the surveillance footage, the DNA stuff that came back with their information on it, they have more than enough evidence to charge and prosecute the girls. So they were charged with voluntary manslaughter and some other charges as well. So these charges were brought on them in May of 2010. So a couple months after the murder, they both pleaded not guilty to those voluntary manslaughter charges. However, after some time and after those charges began to pile up on them, they then went ahead and pleaded guilty to the voluntary manslaughter charges, as well as a slew of other charges. So first it was Taz who pled guilty to the voluntary manslaughter charges. With the other charges, she pled guilty in January of 2014, and then her sister Jazz pled guilty to the same charges in February of 2014. And they were both sentenced to 30 years in prison, but they did have the possibility of parole. Now, one of the stipulations of their sentencing was that they did have the option to take a plea deal, which they did, And one of the stipulations of the plea deal was they had to do a video interview to reveal what happened to Nikki the day that she was murdered. In the video, the twins revealed that they had fought with their mom that morning. And one girl, she hit Nikki with the vase over the head. Remember that broken vase from the crime scene that the detectives found? Yeah, that's the vase she used to hit Nikki over the head with. And then they started stabbing her repeatedly. And then after she was unconscious, they drug her to the bathtubs. Wasn't just one of them, both of them drug her to the bathtub. So it was a joint effort. Jazmine, or Jazz, said that her mom's final moments were her in a bathtub filled with water. She went under a few times, and then that was it. So as of today, the girls are serving their sentence. They are actually serving their sentence in separate prisons. Taz is in Arendelle State Prison in Georgia, and Jazz is in Pulaski State Prison. Taz has a tentative parole date of May 2025. Oh shoot, that's this month. That's crazy. So she could possibly be out this month depending on how the parole hearing goes. I'm not sure why they have separate dates up for parole. I know that they pled guilty at different times. I don't know if that has something to do with it, or it's just, you know, they gave Jazz more time because she did more of the crime. I don't know. But yeah, she can possibly be out in 2027. But let me know what you guys think about this story. Me personally, I think it was heartbreaking. The detective said that the murder was a crime of passion. So yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about this story? And if I missed anything, let me know in the comments. But me personally, I just think that this all could have been prevented with the right measures in place. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, they could have kind of eased into the whole living with their mom thing. Just like in any like custody battle, the one parent probably would get the visitation, you know, every other weekend, or just a visitation for like a day. They could have started with the every other weekend thing with Nikki and then worked it up to, you know, where she would have them full time, because it's like you're literally taking them out of an environment that's all they know and putting them into another one. And then on top of that, with like a man that they don't know, not even just their mom that they don't know, but also a man, because she was in this relationship. I'm sure they had no dealings with Robert, no offense to him, but I'm sure they didn't have any dealings with him, so they don't know him. And then moving into his house, it's just weird all around. So I feel like it was failed on both ends, and they should have did that whole 2-week trial period. That should have went out the window, because that would never go good. There should have been some type of custody arrangement in place. Like they could have continued to go to school with great grandma and then see mom on the weekend, and then, you know, go from there. And then on top of that, they were old enough to express where they wanted to be, so that should have definitely been taken into consideration as well. I know that the courts like for children to be with their parents, but in situations like this, I just feel like the parent needs to re-earn that privilege. It just, yeah, it's not right. It's not right. You wouldn't take a small child out of an environment that they only know to put them with another parent that they barely know. So why would you do it with teenagers, you know? But yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I will be seeing you guys in my next video. Ciao.